just unpack some American Israeli media here. Let's do it. It'll be fun. I find that they're speaking to like Americans. It's not Israeli. It really isn't. Their audience are like left-wing Americans in Israel, kind of thing. Like left, kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but it's just
well, they also have a monopoly on. Well, maybe they don't have a monopoly, but it feels to me that they were able to position themselves as the go-to English source for Israel news. Now, you have Haaretz in English, and you have Jerusalem Post, and you have a few others, but Times of Israel, from the numbers that I've seen, seems to be number one in the English.
I think they get like 12 million global uniques a month.
Yeah. I've seen similar numbers. I mean, that's a vanity metric, from similar web. But
I know, I understand that's vanity metric. And well, I just say it's a business model. They're fantastic what they did just as an entrepreneur, because what they did was very wisely is they let any random schmo without being qualified can go ahead and write a blog on Times of Israel and be a blogger, and then they share it to their audience.
Yeah, but that's what the Huffington. Yeah, but they didn't invent that. I mean, Bleacher Report was doing that before it was acquired by Turner, and Huffington Post used to do that. So that's the standard. I mean, we do that too with our I'm building a new product, and so we kind of take a similar approach. It's not like innovative; it's pretty standard. I don't know. I mean, listen, they've done an okay job, but they're also like, I think they're technically a business, not a nonprofit. But they operate like a nonprofit. I mean, when you look at their messaging,
I don't know why they're asking for money. I thought that was the strangest thing all the time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm pretty sure they're a for-profit.
Yeah, they are for-profit.
Yeah.
But when they ask for money, they would say they're a nonprofit. If they were asking for money, they would say it's tax deductible.
No, but the messaging, forget the word nonprofit. The messaging of like, if you support Israel, support us.
I know. It's really gross. It's really
inauthentic and like a huge turnoff.
Well, I think it's a turnoff to me, but most people don't know any better, and they're trying to pull on the strings of people and saying, "Hey, take your money because you support Israel, give it to us, and we'll just take advantage of it." In a sense, right? It's sometimes some like radical parts of Israeli universities were trying to do that too. They would play out people that wanted to give to Zionist causes, universities, and education. They would reroute that money into like nefarious radical studies that are like extremely niche and a very small minority of the universities and what they're teaching. It is an issue. Yeah. So do you think, I mean, what they did do right is their user interface is very strong. Jerusalem Post, from sources, I heard there's a few years ago, they like went over the top with ads. You're probably familiar with this on their digital, and I was like, you're like destroying your platform. I was speaking to them. I was like, I don't open Jerusalem Post anymore on mobile because it's just such a pain in the ass. And they were like, our revenue's tripled. And I was like, I don't know what to say to that. That's legit. So it's like, it's a good response. I was like, I get it. All right, your revenue tripled.
Yeah, but you know what? Like,
it's not a good long play.
It's not a good long play. And again, if everything's always about business, then you lose. I know it sounds cliche, but you lose that human aspect. And I feel that, with Izzy, that was always part of the plan from the very beginning. Is like, ultimately, we want to deliver the best experience to the user. And then we'll figure out how to monetize from there and how to grow the business. But to me, when you really put the user at the front and center of trying to provide that great experience, not compromise it for quote unquote business goals. I mean, it's a balance, obviously, but at the same time, I find, and forget Israel media. I mean, in general, like companies that prioritize money over customer experience, I think, as you said, in the long run, don't really fare too well.
They'll lose in the long run, and I think they'll start to see that their viewership will start to get peeled away from others that have a better UI, like Israel National News or even Times of Israel. I mean, it's just kind of, I think, the nature. They also lost some really good opinion people over there. I don't know what went over there. That was their best part. Was I found a lot of opinions that were interesting that I disagreed with across the spectrum on Jerusalem Post.
So what's interesting about that is like, because you were talking about the model of like having, allowing anyone to build on your platform, so to speak, with their own content. But I think now with like Medium and now Substack and
Substack's really doing great.
So people are realizing like, why do I need to bring my IP to Times of Israel or HuffPost or whatever, if I know how to do marketing or if I already have an audience, whether it's Twitter or an email list, then I can own my audience and I don't need to rely on these publications. And yeah, I think also like the sex appeal of Times of Israel and some of these bigger platforms, kind of went away because it just became normal and mainstream. And now with, a tool like a Substack, I'm finding like it's actually funny because I recently started a Substack 2.5 months ago.
Congratulations.
And
How
thank
can we
you.
find it?
It's futureofjewish.substack.com. And so anyway, there was one situation I had where I had interviewed a relatively high profile Jewish influencer on my podcast, also called
Who?
Future of Jewish, Jamie Geller.
Mhm.
And she, for the first time, really opened up about the anxiety and the depression that she was going through as a content creator.
Whoa.
And how it really, yeah. And so what I was going to do is I was going to send that out as a press release, because I also interviewed another Jewish influencer who also made some comments about those subjects. And so I was going to send out a press release to one of the Jewish, I was actually advised to do this, by the way, it wasn't my idea. One of my advisors was like, you should write this in a press release, send it out to one of the Jewish publications. And I was literally writing the press release and I was like, why am I going to send this to them? I'm just going to publish this myself on my own Substack. And like, I think that's just a good microcosm of like understanding that you don't need big brands anymore. And you can say the same thing about anything in life. Forget media. If you want to start a business, like you don't need to go to somebody who can provide crazy capital in the beginning, because actually you don't have the leverage. Figure out how to build your own leverage, and then eventually go maybe and take capital or partner with one of the bigger players in your space. But it's really all about permissionless creation today, right? Like you don't need other people's permission. You don't need other people. Like I don't need to put out a press release and then like cross my fingers and hope that somebody else is going to pick it up. I'll just go put it up myself.
Exactly right.
And obviously that comes, there's like, it's not that simple. I mean, you have to know how to be a marketer and you have to build your own audience, and like it's its own set of challenges. But actually you're building the equity with that sort of that second approach versus borrowing other people's assets or whatever, and therefore kind of either giving your IP or your leverage to them, or just not fully maximizing over the long haul what you can do when you maintain that leverage and that equity, so to speak.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I've always been wanting to start my own Israel news thing to compete with all these digital ones. It's been like a passion of mine. I've been looking into it actually with a friend of mine, but it seems like the easiest way to kind of get to break even cash flow in order for it to become self-sustaining might actually go start as a business publication, in my opinion. I think there's more there, and kind of like a tech public, kind of like Calculist, you know what I mean? Things like that. But that also
We should talk about that because, I mean, first of all, we have Izzy already, but yeah, no, there's definitely room for disruption in the Israel news space. I have some ideas that I probably won't share publicly, but I'd be happy to speak with you privately about it. But I think there's definitely room for that. And, the reason why I would like to see it happen is because, again, I go back to what I was saying before, that, the business is nice because it brings opportunities and different things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do otherwise when you have cash flow and revenue and hopefully some sort of scale. But it's not really about the business. It's really about, for me personally, being so underwhelmingly impressed by what we're putting out to the world from Israel, and saying, like, it's not brain science. Like, it's pretty simple. We know people like characters and storytelling.
Yeah.
And you can't tell Israel's story in a studio, and you can't tell Israel's story by just regurgitating Israeli news and translating it to English.
Taking Reuters and then writing, you know what I mean, rewriting it, adding 4 sentences, then write Times Visual Staff or JPO staff on it.
Right. And so the question is, like, can you do that in a way that's, again, puts the customer experience front and center? Is this something that people can enjoy, that they can, different viewers have different desires, right? Some people want to feel closer to Israel. Some people will never get an opportunity to come here. So this is sort of their best chance to experience the country.
It's their window.
And so, just really hitting on those customer needs and wants. And if you can do it at scale, and if you can tie a nice business model to it, then I think everyone wins.
Would you say Israel has also stopped relying as much on establishment news sources, whether it's TV or audio or written, and are instead now actually trusting more following more individuals, even if they work for those big corporations?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if anything, I mean, Israel's a part of the world, so any global trends are ultimately going to come to Israel. So I think the short answer is yes. I think what you're describing though is not a new. I mean, because when you use the word trend, the implication is that it's new, and what you're
Right.
describing
It's
is
not new, but I would say it's overtaken. It's not even small. I'd say the
it's
majority of
overtaken
people,
for the
it's
simple
overtaken.
fact that if 30 to 50 years ago, if you wanted to build, I don't think they called it at that time a personal brand, but if you wanted to build effectively a personal brand, you had to go to the gatekeepers of the media,
Gatekeepers.
which were the TV, radio, newspaper, magazine.
And just getting our
And
foot in the door is impossible. I've listened to like popular radio hosts in America. Like I've just like they told their stories of how they just try to get like someone to just listen to like one of their recordings. They like mail in cassettes, physically, just to hopefully to get like a
yeah, that's what we had to do
weekend,
even
one
back when I
hour in
was
the
in
middle of the
journalism
night.
school.
Now
Right.
I can just fuck it. Right now we're putting up my own content. We're doing it on our own. I don't need anyone else. And then this is enough. And maybe someone will come by and say, hey, this is great. Maybe Josh and Yoel, some other people put something together and create something better with media, even make our own venture. You had no opportunity to break through the
Right.
corrupt gatekeepers.
And now what people are finding is that, kind of like what I was saying with Substack, is that maybe these media platforms that have built-in audiences are a stepping stone, or they're a way to get started. But I think, I mean, you see it with even like big media companies like ESPN, which is a multi-billion dollar worth of enterprise, is that people get too big now, and ESPN doesn't want to pay the rising costs of what they call talent. And so either the talent jumped ship to a competitor, which you saw a lot of ESPN talent went to work for Fox Sports because they were willing to pay more, or they just go and do their own thing. They just say, I'm going to start my own podcast network or my own media company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the difference. I think people have always trusted other people. It's always been, I mean, even if you go back and look at like the beginning of late night TV, it was always personality driven. If you always go back and look at like some of the legendary newscasters back like in the Tom Crockout, but even before, Charles Cronkite, I think his first name was Charles, right? No, I think I got that right. Wrong.
Good.
Walter Cronkite. Yeah, Walter Cronkite. Yeah, didn't feel right. Like, so it was always people trusting other people. The question is, or the difference is, now people have different avenues. The talent has different avenues to create the relationship with the viewer or the reader or the listener, and it doesn't exclusively have to be through legacy media companies.
Mm-hmm.